Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2001 direct-to-video thriller Backflash. More like Backrash, because this movie sucks so much. It makes your back itch. Before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this forgettable and lame movie, I would like to give a special shout out to Antonio for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. A link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Backflash is directed by a guy named Phillip J. Jones, who, if you look at his filmography, the guy hasn't directed jack shit. He directed Cause of Death, never heard of it. Wish Me Luck, never heard of that. Getting Up, haven't heard of that. And Hellborn. There isn't a single film that he's done here that most people even recognize. And he's a director who's a dime a dozen. The type of director who honestly seems like the type that you would see directing your average episode of a really generic, bad TV show from the 90s or the 2000s that lasted like one season or half a season before it got canceled. It's that kind of quality of direction. It's very lackluster. It's uninspired. It's not very skilled. Uh, it's competent at best in some capacity, but in other ways, it's not, because it really exposes the film's low budget. It really showcases how the director doesn't have much of a sense of style or flair. The film doesn't really have a good flow to it visually. It's very stiff, and honestly, I attribute a lot of that to the way that the shots are framed. The action, what little bit of it is there, is made even more pathetic by the director, who doesn't seem to know how to direct any of these scenes in ways to really provide any sort of visual thrill or excitement. And anything in terms of like a different camera angle or a different perspective, he just doesn't seem to be capable of that. I think he did like 2 or 3 different types of shots for the entire movie. Every now and then you might get a wide shot, and that's about it. Uh, yeah, this was not a very well directed film by any means. And it also features a poor screenplay by Phillip J. Jones, who is also the director, Lillian A. Jackson, and Jennifer Farrell. I have no idea why this script needed 3 writers. This is a film that is barely even a movie, by the way. It seemed like the writers spent more time coming up with twists than they did coming up with an engaging plot line. Because this is the plot of Backflash. This video store owner, so you think, named Ray, leaves a video store one day, meets up with this hitchhiker named Harley who got out of prison, and the two sort of fall in love. They go to a hotel room, and Harley convinces Ray to help her get this money out of a safe deposit box that she stole along with this other guy named Pez from this money guy. You know, this guy who he's a money runner. You know, he's a guy who runs money for this other guy who is a criminal. So this other guy who's like some kind of boss in this small town. It's never explained what kind of boss he is. He's just some kind of boss. And this guy named Jin is working for him, and Harley was working at a bar that this guy owned, and then she wound up being roped into everything and running money for him, and then she meets Pez, and then you're thinking, okay, the two of them are going to be partners in crime, and they ultimately are, but then they get busted by the feds, and then you think Pez dies, but somehow I guess he survived, and because there's another twist later that, oh, you think he's dead, but he's not really, and there's a lot of that in this script where it's like, oh, you thought that? Oh, you're wrong. This is actually what happened. And after a certain point, like, it just got kind of old because you're like, okay, all right, can you, like, give me an action scene? Can you give me something happening other than just, oh, hey, this thing that you thought happened, it didn't happen that way, it happened this way. Um, in a more engaging plot, that would be pretty effective, but it's not engaging though. Like, there's a whole subplot that seems to be devoted to this gross motel manager who's just gross and a jerk off. You have weird out of place scenes with this guy who works at the video store that is like comic relief, that honestly seems like the kind of stuff you would see in Big Bang Theory in terms of the writing. You got CJ, who is a coroner who works for Tano and his crew, and she's snarky and she's goth, and that's really all that you really get with her. I guess she knows Harley, but that's basically the only main connection that she has with anything that's going on. The whole bit where Harley and Ray go to the bank, it goes off without a hitch for the most part. Not really much of an issue, even though Robert Patrick looks nothing like this guy, Pez, that he's supposed to imitate so he can be Mr. Friendly and go along with Miss Friendly to the bank and get the money. And then after they get the money, Ray gets knocked out. You get the twist that reveals that Pez was still alive. Oh, prior to that, you've had a lot of stuff with this guy named Skull who works for Jin, who just gets his butt kicked by Harley throughout most of the movie, and is so doped up on painkillers that he falls asleep in a motel room and completely misses Ray and Harley going to the bank, and misses when they get back too. He's just one of many people who work for Jin who are just awful. They're awful henchmen. They suck at their jobs. No wonder Jin gets fired and gets put back to being a doorman by the end of the movie by Tano. And all of his henchmen just get dispatched in the end in the most moronic ways. Two of them are just idiots who get blown up by their stupidity. And Skull just gets easily overpowered yet again. He just gets overpowered by everybody. And I think he's supposed to be the main heavy. And the guy, it seems like he get knocked over by a light gust of wind. And you have this whole thing at the end where it's now like a twist on top of a twist on top of another twist. Where, oh, you think that Harley's boyfriend Pez had the money, and Harley has the money now, but she never did. In fact, Ray had the money the entire time. He swapped the bags out. He put fake money in the other bag. And then you're thinking, okay, he has a moment with Pez and he takes him out with a gun and saves Harley. And so you're thinking that, okay, they're going to get together at the end, because that's what you've kind of been seeing throughout this script, is that Ray and Harley kind of have a thing for one another. But no, it's another twist where, Ray actually used to work for Tano, who's the guy who is the boss of Jin, who is Harley's boss. And Tano wants his money back. And so that's why there was that whole thing with the money bags where they were switched out. So Ray can give the money to Tano, and this is happening because now Ray is going to be the guy who's running the money for Tano. He is going to be the underboss and take over for Jin because Jin got fired and got demoted back to a doorman by Tano. And Harley is just left with a shitty Subaru and frustrated and left with nothing. No money, no anything. Tano and Ray then drive off, and that's Backflash. That's it. That's all that happens in this movie. It doesn't even provide much in terms of, sexy sort of thrills. It doesn't thrill you in that way. Because it's not even something you would see in a soft core porn. Like there's one scene where Jennifer Esposito, I think, is in a wet t-shirt because she went into a pool. That's basically about it. So it doesn't even provide that kind of stuff either if you're looking for that out of this movie. The action when it is there is terrible. It's awful. It's just piddly shootouts and a couple explosions. That is all that you get. The humor at points is kind of all right. There's some moments of CJ that I kind of chuckled at. Some stuff with Jin, the motel manager who's a slob. Some of that stuff was kind of funny. There were some moments between Ray and Harley that I didn't mind. There was also some stuff, with the guy who works for Ray at the video store. There were a lot of like groaners between the two, but then there were some other moments that I kind of didn't mind. Almost to the point where I wish that the entire movie was about those two trying to run this video store. Like, it's some version of Clerks. And I guess there were some other things where they're trying to create a little bit of character, like Colm Meaney's character Jin. He's living in like a refrigerated trailer that's decorated with all these Christmas decorations because he spent all of his time as a doorman and he is just sick of the heat. And so now he's become, I guess, crazy for Christmas, which I guess is somewhat different, but it doesn't make much sense. So there are some things in the script that are, I guess, kind of decent, but it's still just a really generic, boring thriller. And there's not much going on throughout the entirety of it. Except you get to see not one, but two scenes of an annoying alarm clock going off. That's definitely quite a thrill, isn't it? That's some high octane thrills. Now, the film features, in all honesty, a decent cast. You've got Robert Patrick as Ray. You've got Jennifer Esposito as Harley. Mike Starr, who was in Dumb and Dumber, as Tano. Melissa Joan Hart, of all people, as CJ, the goth, snarky coroner, which is really a surprising casting choice, and she actually pulled it off. So that was fun to see her play against type. Mike Hagerty is in this as Red, a guy who works for Jin. Jin is played by Colm Meaney. Michael J. Pollard has a small role as a guy named Dawn. You've got Vito Ruginis, who plays a motel manager. Robert Deacon, who plays Skull, and Val Lauren, who plays Pez. And out of the cast, I would say Robert Patrick and Jennifer Esposito, the two leads, they definitely are the best. They have some all right chemistry with one another when it comes to their scenes together, and their performances aren't too bad. Honestly, no one here is really delivering like a bad performance. It's just a bad movie. It's like one of those things where the actors are doing their best, but they're given a shitty script to work with that doesn't really have a whole lot of anything happening or going on in it. So there's not really a whole lot that they can do. But they make the best of it, but it's not enough to save the film, but they're not a problem. The problem is everything else. The film also features some very just equally lackluster cinematography by Maximo Munzi. He doesn't really deliver maximum effort here. You have editing by John Reigelhoff, which is so. Then you have music by Cindy Valentine, Leone, and Carl Wirtz, which sucks a big one. Like it really is terrible. Like this music is ill-fitting or it's generic as hell. And the songs that they chose for the soundtrack were also really bad. Like the opening credits had a really god awful song. And then there were other songs from the same artist that really sucked. You had, for some reason, in one scene that's just like a wide shot of people driving down the road, they had a I'm sorry, like I'm getting a bit discombobulated right now just thinking about this because I can't believe this fucking song choice. They had like some kind of tribal music or something. Like this is Ernest Goes to fucking Africa. And I'm like, I thought this was a film taking place in like Arizona or somewhere like that in the desert. Why the hell does it sound like they're in Africa now for some reason? What the hell is this? But yeah, there's just a lot of just bad songs in this. I think a lot of them were the ones by Steve Ballman. Yeah, Life Isn't Fair, Can't Go Home, Face the Wind. Just a shitty soundtrack. And I guess it's rather fitting for a relatively shitty film. I mean, I don't really know what else to say about this. There's really not much of anything to this film. Like, even the tagline gives away the twists. There's nothing real in this but the money. You just gave it away. Because we watched the movie, there's nothing real in it but the money. Because everything else that you think is happening is a bunch of bullshit. Because the only thing that's real is the money. It all leads back to the money by the end. That's the only reason why this got made too, is to sucker people to pay their hard-earned money to rent this at Blockbuster because they like Robert Patrick and they thought he was really good in Terminator 2. So they're like, "Oh, cool! It's the guy from T2 played the T-1000. I'll check this one out." Or to fill a time slot on Showtime or Cinemax late one night during the programming block. Other than that, there's really not much of a reason for this to fucking exist. Is it one of the worst things I've ever seen? No, it's not. It's the kind of bad film that's just inoffensively, unaggressively bad. It's just your typical below average thriller that's not very thrilling and is mostly boring. That's really what it is. That's really what Backflash is at the end of the day. But anyway, thank you for watching my review of the film, and until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.